Today's video is going to be another psychedelic trip report video, and I feel like at this point I still have to preface these videos by reminding you that I'm not an experienced psychonaut. I have lots of experience with microdosing, I have lots of interest in psychedelic research, but when it comes to macrodosing, this is truly an area in which I am allowing myself all the time in the world to go at my own pace. My plan for 2021 is to gradually work my way up to a 5-gram heroic dose of magic mushrooms. If you're not familiar, the 5-gram heroic dose is sort of seen as the pinnacle of the psychedelic journey. It's where you lose all sense of reality and you get completely transported and taken away. That is something that I'm very excited about, and I plan to do it alone. And it's also something that I plan to approach with a lot of responsibility and caution, which is why I'm not jumping 2 feet into it. In my last trip report, I told you about what it was like to trip on 1 gram of magic mushrooms. Most recently, I increased that dose to 2 grams, and in today's video, I'm going to tell you about what this experience was like. I did notice some differences between 2 grams and 1 gram, so I'm going to share with you what some of these differences are, as well as reasons why I believe 2 grams was the better dose for me for therapeutic purposes. The way that I prepared for my recent trip was very similar to the way that I prepared for my last trip. I woke up, I walked my dog, came back, got comfy, took my dose, and used the time in between ingestion and onset to meditate and write down my intentions. Writing down my intentions was something I took extra care of this time because I knew that I was going to go into this trip for more therapeutic purposes, for more introspection purposes. And I liken the practice of writing down your intentions to being prepared for a therapy session with your therapist. You know, it helps to have an idea of the certain aspects of your life or certain issues that you would like to address with your therapist. And in this case, there were some things that had been weighing on me that I knew I wanted to get clarity on. We've talked in previous videos about the difference between expecting a result going into a trip versus asking a question. You certainly don't want to go into a trip with any expectations because it's going to make the process more difficult for you. That act of clutching onto something is a huge factor that causes anxiety during a trip, I believe. And so you don't want to be clutching onto anything. You do want to ask questions and then let go. So that's exactly what I did. I wrote down my intentions, I wrote down the questions that I wanted answers to, and then I let it go. Number 1, the 1 gram trip was simply more fun. And the reason for this is because it allowed me to have just enough of a taste of the psychedelic experience without getting too deep. I understand now why some people call the 1 gram dose a museum dose, because it makes the act of viewing art more enjoyable. For me, it made the act of staring at my ceiling more enjoyable because my ceilings were suddenly flushed with lavender tones for some reason, and the sunlight beaming through my curtains were vivid and sparkly, and it was all wonderful. Needless to say, on 2 grams, none of that happened. I didn't notice any vivid colors. In fact, at one point I could have sworn that the sunlight turned kind of black and white. But to be honest, I didn't spend too much time looking at my immediate surroundings because I was deep into introspection. Which brings us to our next point. Tripping on 2 grams of psilocybin mushrooms provided a deeper therapeutic experience for me. One of the strongest indicators of this was the fact that I cried at least a few times on my 2 gram trip, whereas I didn't cry at all on my 1 gram trip. What was interesting about the crying was that I didn't even have tears to shed. I had simply been feeling so many emotions so intensely that crying became my instinctual outlet. There's a reason why these trip reports sound very similar, because it is all about love. And in that moment, in those moments during my trip, I experienced so much love towards my family, my friends, everything, myself. It was all so overwhelming, but also in the best way. Another reason why I know 2 grams is more therapeutic for me was because it compelled me to take immediate action. For example, before my trip had even wrapped up, I found myself texting my brother just to ask how he was. He lives on the other side of the country, and I hadn't spoken to him in a while, and I realized that I missed him. The third difference that I noticed between the 2 gram trip and the 1 gram trip was that 2 grams left me feeling more physically tired the next day. On 1 gram, there was hardly any physical come down for me. I was tired for a few hours in its immediate aftermath, but I was basically able to bounce back at 100% the next day. On 2 grams, however, I was not. The day after my trip, I was tired. I ended up moving my schedule around so that I could have more time to rest. And at the time of filming, I'm over 2 days out. And to be honest, guys, I really thought about whether or not I wanted to come out with a video this week at all, because I still feel more physically drained. I'm not at 100% yet. This section of the video is not going to be so neatly packaged compared to my last trip report. The reason for why this section of the video is not going to be so neatly processed is because I haven't processed everything, nor am I certain that I ever will fully process everything, because I went deeper this time. So forgive me if this section ends up being a hot mess, but I'm just going to come to you as is. Number 1, I started visualizing my parents as children while I was on my trip. And looking back, this is certainly one of the reasons why I was bawling my eyes out. For those of us who are lucky enough to have our parents around, we are so used to thinking of them as adults that we might forget that they used to be children. If you've ever practiced metta meditation or loving kindness meditation, you'll know exactly what I mean. And this is a powerful practice because it helps cultivate a sense of compassion. Of course, you might start with someone for whom it's easy to feel loving kindness towards, but this is a practice that you would also use to help you cultivate a sense of compassion for people that you might not otherwise have compassion for. Number 2, I started visualizing an old friend, somebody who I'd had a recent falling out with. I don't want to get too much into this, just that we had a falling out and my ego was happy to stay separated from this person. But while I was on my trip, I started thinking about our friendship. I started thinking about the fact that I didn't want to let our ego keep us separated and that I wanted to get back in touch. And in order to do so, I would have to swallow my pride and that I would have to come from a place of love. So I think that is what I'm going to do. That's something that I'm seriously considering. Takeaway number 3. These were the words that I wrote down in my notes verbatim. The world is run by traumatized people, and power is a currency used by some to hedge against the risk of rejection. Even though we all just want love in the end, some of us are convinced that we have to jump through bigger hoops to get it. Beware of those who live by the principle of the ends justify the means, because people use that to convince themselves of just about anything. It is a principle that is a gateway to corruption and manipulation and abuses of power. Now, I don't know if I started thinking about all of this because I've been spending too much time watching documentaries about cults. Looking back, I am sure that's probably why, but now I have my answer, and I don't know, my consciousness just thought it would be important for me to know these things, and now I'm sharing them with you. Another point that I wrote down is that there is a massive difference between doing something for love and doing something out of love. The former is a corrupting force, while the latter will empower you. Number 4, daily meditation can be seen as an act of self-love. Many of us, including myself, still see regular meditation as a chore sometimes, especially when life gets busy. It can be easy to drop your daily practice. On my trip, it just felt so good to experience breakthroughs of enlightenment in which the filter of my ego had been stripped away, and at long last I could see clearly, and what I experienced and saw was pure love. I found myself thinking, wouldn't it be nice if these moments could last, or at the very least, if they could be conjured up again? And I didn't want to have to wait until my next trip to have the same experience. I wanted it to be incorporated into my day-to-day life somehow. What is truly so incredible is that you don't have to go on an extravagant journey to get a taste of this bliss, this clarity, this oneness. This is what meditation is for. And you can simply begin by carving out 10 to 20 minutes of your day in order to engage in this practice. Maybe it's formal practice, maybe it's informal practice. The practice is in essence the same. If you can have an appreciation of what the fruits of it are, then the practice doesn't have to be a chore. It is rather a gift. I hope that made sense. I'm just going to go to point number 5, which is definitely not going to make sense for you. Maybe it might. It's just actually a bunch of jumbled up thoughts about capitalism. There was a moment on my trip where, honestly, looking back, probably had a little bit too much fun doing this, but I imagined the entire capitalistic system just collapsing upon itself. And I am not saying this as a sympathizer of communism, because my ancestral homelands have been ravaged by communism, so I know the destruction of communism, but I'm also not a fan of late stage capitalism. Okay, now I feel kind of funny that I even shared that with you. But you know what? This is an educational video, and I'm not going to pretend that I've had certain experiences, or I'm not going to wrap something up in a certain way if it's not authentic. My closing thoughts for you with regards to tripping on 2 grams of magic mushrooms are is that it's honestly, looking back, was such a beautiful introspective experience for me. It was really therapeutic. I would highly recommend it. I would highly recommend 2 grams. I don't think it should be anything that you should be afraid of. It's not going to completely remove yourself from your sense of reality. So if you're curious about your first macrodose and you're wondering if you should go with 1 gram or 2 grams, why not? Why not go into 2 grams if you are careful about settings? I feel like it would be beneficial, especially for therapeutic purposes. And that is the note that I'm going to end off on, and I will see you in my next video.